When Brenda screamed common property at my $2 million Marina gate, she had no idea this retired Coast Guard engineer was about to flip her own HOA rules against her and turn her wine parties into her worst nightmare. For 2 years, her Wines and Wines book club had hijacked my private dock every Thursday. 12 Karens in sun hats, blocking my yacht, spilling rose on teak decks, leaving lipstick-stained cups and diesel-soaked trash until 2 a.m., the stench hit me every Friday morning like a hangover I didn't earn. So I installed a steel gate on my land. The clang when it locked, pure justice. She threatened lawsuits, called her city councilman husband, claimed the dock was community space. I just smiled and pulled out 3 years of time-stamped evidence. Every violation, every lie, every dirty trick she thought nobody was watching. What this power-drunk HOA chair didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything, and payback was about to get very, very public. What would you do if an HOA tried to steal your property? Drop your city in the comments. I'm watching from Naples, Florida. Let me back up and tell you how this whole nightmare started. 3 years ago, I inherited waterfront property in Millfield Cove, Connecticut from Uncle Frank, a crusty Coast Guard engineer who'd rather rebuild engines than deal with people. Smart man. The property came with 2 separate deeds, the main house where I live and a 6-slip marina Frank built in 1987. We're talking proper permits, environmental approvals, $20,000 in materials. This wasn't weekend DIY. Frank had designed floating docks for the Coast Guard for 30 years. Always check if inherited property has multiple parcels with separate deeds. It's your strongest defense against HOA overreach. Multiple deeds mean multiple property rights that can't be combined without your consent. The marina sat mostly empty when I moved in. Frank's old Boston whaler floated in slip 3, covered in seagull droppings and salt spray. The smell of creosote and diesel fuel reminded me of my own Coast Guard days. Peaceful, exactly what I needed after 3 decades of military service. That peace lasted exactly 4 months. Enter Brenda Kessler, 48, real estate agent and self-appointed queen of the Millfield Cove HOA. Picture a woman who color codes her spice rack and irons her yoga pants. Her husband Roy sits on city council, the kind of politician who remembers your wallet size but not your name. Brenda first invaded on a Thursday in May, leading 12 SUVs down to my marina like some entitled wagon train. I watched from my deck as women in designer athleisure unloaded enough wine to float a small destroyer. The clink of stemware against my custom teak railings made me cringe. "Oh, hi," Brenda chirped when she spotted me. "Just using the community marina for book club. Hope you don't mind." The audacity hit me like a slap. "This is private property. My uncle built this on his own land." Her smile froze, but those shark eyes went calculating. "Well, there's obviously been some confusion. Waterfront amenities are community resources here. I'll have someone research the paperwork." That someone was Roy, who magically discovered an HOA covenant claiming shared access to recreational waterfront facilities. Never mind, this marina existed a decade before their HOA was incorporated. Details, right? Here's where it gets infuriating. Instead of just asking to occasionally use the dock, Brenda declared it community property and started charging her book club members $50 each for marina access fees. She was literally profiting off my property while telling me I had no say in the matter. Every Thursday became my personal hell. The Wines and Wines Club, though I never saw them crack anything but Chardonnay, would arrive like an invading army, blocking my boat access, rearranging my furniture, leaving disasters of lipstick-stained cups and soggy cheese plates floating in the water. The sound of their wine-fueled cackling at midnight made my blood pressure spike. These weren't quiet book discussions. They were full-blown parties with speakers, gossip sessions, and enough drunk drama to power a reality show. When I politely asked them to clean up, Brenda would pat my arm like I was a confused dog. "Marcus, don't be antisocial. Community spirit makes Millfield special." Community spirit? Lady, you're running an unlicensed commercial operation on my private dock and pocketing the cash. The breaking point came when security footage caught one of her wine-drunk friends trying to steal my uncle's restored Boston whaler. A blonde in a wine mom t-shirt was fumbling with the ignition, while her crew cheered her on like it was spring break. That's when I installed the $12,000 steel gate with electronic locks and enough cameras to make the Pentagon jealous. The look on Brenda's face when that gate clanged shut for the first time, priceless. But here's what I didn't expect. Instead of backing down like any reasonable person, Brenda declared total war. And honestly, I'd been hoping she would. The morning after I locked Brenda out, she filed a formal HOA complaint accusing me of antisocial behavior detrimental to community harmony. The smell of fresh coffee turned bitter in my mouth as I read her 3-page manifesto, claiming I was hoarding community resources and displaying hostility toward neighborhood traditions. Tradition? Lady, your wine parties started 2 years ago, not 2 centuries. But Brenda wasn't playing games. She scheduled an emergency architectural review board meeting for Tuesday morning, conveniently when working people couldn't attend. The agenda item read, Review of Unauthorized Gate Installation Restricting Community Waterfront Access. The word unauthorized made my jaw clench. I'd pulled proper permits like any law-abiding citizen. Her secret weapon was a copy of the 1997 HOA covenants, claiming all waterfront recreational facilities fell under community jurisdiction. She'd highlighted every section in hot pink marker, probably while sipping her morning mimosa and plotting my downfall. Most people would panic at this point, but 3 decades in the Coast Guard taught me that paperwork wars are won by whoever does their homework first. While Brenda planned my public execution, I was at town hall digging through filing cabinets that reeked of old cigarettes and bureaucratic despair. Town clerk Mrs. Henderson, a sharp woman who'd been filing documents since the Carter administration, pulled out my uncle's original 1987 Marina permits. Frank was thorough, she said, adjusting wire-rimmed glasses. These permits specifically state the marina was built on private lot 47B, completely separate from residential lots under HOA control. Then Mrs. Henderson dropped a bombshell that made my blood freeze. Your neighbor, Mrs. Kessler, requested these same documents 6 months ago. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Before you even moved here. She asked specifically about adverse possession laws, how long someone needs to use property before claiming ownership. The pieces clicked together like a weapon being assembled. This wasn't some spontaneous power grab. Brenda had been planning this marina theft since before I'd unpacked my first box. She'd researched the legal angles, probably discovered that 15 years of continuous use could establish adverse possession rights in Connecticut, and figured 2 years of wine parties would be enough to muddy the waters. The woman was playing a long game, and I'd walked right into her trap. Armed with Frank's permits and deed restrictions, I showed up to Brenda's kangaroo court, ready for battle. The HOA meeting room stunk of vanilla air freshener and manufactured outrage. 12 neighbors slouched in folding chairs, looking like they'd rather be getting root canals. Brenda opened with a PowerPoint titled Preserving Community Values, because nothing says grassroots like corporate presentation software. She'd photographed my gate from every angle, adding dramatic red arrows pointing at the lock like it was evidence of terrorism. This barrier, she announced, laser pointer clicking with prosecutorial precision, represents selfish individualism threatening our community fabric. The woman had talking points about my exclusionary fence, creating social division. She claimed 3 families were considering moving because of my antisocial hostility. Her bangles clinked against the podium microphone with each accusation, creating this annoying metallic rhythm that matched her rehearsed outrage. When she finished assassinating my character, I stood with my manila folder. Before we discuss community values, let's discuss property law. I spread Frank's permits across the table like a royal flush. This marina was built entirely on Lot 47B with a separate deed, environmental impact study, Coast Guard floating dock approval, town permit specifically exempting marina facilities from HOA jurisdiction. Dead silence except for fluorescent lights buzzing like angry wasps. Brenda's face went through 5 stages of grief in 10 seconds. Confusion, denial, anger, bargaining, and pure panic as she realized her research had missed crucial details. Furthermore, I continued, savoring the moment, the 1997 HOA covenants explicitly cover residential lots 1 through 46. Lot 47B isn't mentioned because it was already developed and specifically excluded from association control. Board member Tom Rodriguez, a decent mechanic who probably wanted to be fixing transmissions instead of refereeing neighbor disputes, cleared his throat. So the marina was never HOA property? Never. My uncle negotiated that exclusion in writing before joining the association. Everything's filed, recorded, and legally bulletproof. Brenda scrambled for damage control. There could be implied easements for community access. Maritime law recognizes private property rights. I cut her off, remembering my Coast Guard legal training. Implied easements only apply to necessary access, not recreational party zones. The meeting dissolved into awkward paper shuffling and uncomfortable silence. But as neighbors filed out, I caught the look in Brenda's eyes. Pure rage mixed with desperate calculation. This woman wasn't backing down. If anything, I'd just declared war on someone with connections, resources, and absolutely nothing to lose. She was already speed dialing someone as I walked to my truck, probably activating every political favor her husband had banked over the years. Brenda's revenge came fast and dirty. 2 days after the HOA meeting, a city inspector materialized at my door like a government-issued Grim Reaper. "Marina safety inspection," he announced with all the enthusiasm of a funeral director. "Got reports of dangerous conditions requiring immediate intervention." Meet Dave Kruger, a weaselly little bureaucrat who'd obviously never seen a proper dock in his life. He stumbled around my marina taking photos of perfectly normal equipment while manufacturing violations from thin air. "This electrical junction box violates proximity standards," he muttered, photographing a Coast Guard-approved installation that predated his birth certificate. The stench of his discount aftershave mixed with morning salt air made my eyes water. Watching this clown pretend to understand marine engineering was like watching a toddler perform brain surgery. "Show me the specific code," I demanded, following with my own camera. Dave couldn't cite actual regulations, just vague mumbling about public safety protocols and adequate community access standards. When I asked for his marine credentials, he developed convenient hearing loss. His violation notice read like bureaucratic fan fiction. 17 alleged safety issues including insufficient lighting for public use and inadequate capacity for community access. The punchline? His recommendation for immediate municipal oversight pending compliance. Municipal oversight meant Roy Kessler would control my private property through city authority. These thieves weren't just stealing my dock. They were using government power to legitimize grand larceny. But corruption leaves fingerprints if you know where to look. My public records request revealed that Dave Kruger wasn't some random inspector. He was Roy's former business partner in a construction company that collapsed, owing contractors $200,000. During my Coast Guard years investigating maritime fraud, I'd learned that following money trails always exposes the real story. In this case, Roy had activated his bankruptcy buddy to manufacture fake violations justifying city seizure. The corruption was so blatant it was almost insulting. Did they think this old sailor wouldn't recognize a shakedown? I hired Coastal Marine Engineering for an independent audit. $3,000 to watch Dr. Sarah Hugo examine every bolt and cable Frank had installed. Her boots echoed on the dock planks as she tested each connection point with the precision of a surgeon. "Your uncle was a master," she said, running expert hands along galvanized support systems. "This marina exceeds current codes by ridiculous margins. Whoever called it unsafe is either incompetent or lying." Her report confirmed what I knew. Exemplary condition substantially exceeds safety and environmental standards. Dave's weekend certification from some Albany seminar didn't qualify him to inspect a kiddie pool, much less condemn waterfront property. That's when the anonymous packages started appearing. The first envelope contained photocopied HOA minutes from 3 years ago discussing multi-phase acquisition strategy for premium waterfront assets and revenue optimization through slip rental expansion. Someone had highlighted a section about targeting properties with unclear ownership transitions. They'd been planning this heist since before I'd unpacked my sea bags. The attached note read, "They destroyed our family too. Fight back. Eleanor F. Eleanor Fairbanks." I remembered her from the HOA meeting, an elderly woman who'd sat quietly in the back taking notes while Brenda performed her PowerPoint persecution. Turns out Eleanor was one of the original HOA founders who'd helped Uncle Frank negotiate his marina exemption back in 1987. The second package contained bank records showing Brenda's real estate company collecting marina access fees from homebuyers, $47,000 over 18 months. She'd been selling access to my private property, pocketing the cash, then using city inspectors to justify the theft. The woman had turned my inheritance into her personal revenue stream. But Brenda wasn't finished. She organized a grassroots petition claiming my marina caused traffic congestion and environmental damage. 37 signatures demanding city action against my selfish property hoarding. The petition referenced Dave's manufactured safety concerns as justification for immediate municipal intervention. Then came her media blitz. Channel 8 News scheduled an interview about uncooperative veterans disrupting community harmony. The teaser showed Brenda on the public beach, gesturing dramatically at my gate while lamenting, "Newcomers who reject neighborhood cooperation. Rich." This woman had spent 2 years stealing my property, profiting from fraudulent marketing and deploying corrupt officials to manufacture fake violations. Now she was positioning herself as the victim of my antisocial behavior. But every escalation just handed me more ammunition. My attorney was building a federal case that would make Watergate look like a parking ticket dispute. The metallic taste of anger in my mouth reminded me of combat situations. That moment when you realize the enemy has overplayed their hand and victory becomes inevitable. Let Brenda keep digging. She had no idea how deep this hole was about to get, or how many federal agencies were about to take interest in her little municipal corruption scheme. Game on, sweetheart. Brenda went full scorched earth the following week. Channel 8's morning show featured her on the public beach in a crisp white blazer, looking like she was campaigning for sainthood. "We have a decorated veteran who's forgotten the values he once served," she told the camera with Oscar-worthy sincerity. "When neighbors can't share waterfront resources, we've abandoned the spirit that makes America great." The sheer audacity made my breakfast taste like sawdust. This woman was questioning my patriotism because I wouldn't let her steal my dock. She had more nerve than a toothache and half the sense. By noon, she'd organized a Marina liberation protest complete with professionally printed signs reading, "Veterans should share," and "Community over greed." 23 people showed up chanting focus-grouped slogans while staying carefully on public property. Someone had obviously consulted lawyers about trespassing laws. The smell of fresh poster paint mixed with salt air as I watched Brenda work the crowd like a seasoned politician. She was probably practicing for Roy's inevitable mayoral campaign, using my Marina as her stepping stone to higher office. Then came her nuclear option, filing a formal complaint with the State Department of Environmental Protection claiming I was illegally blocking public waterway access. Her written statement alleged environmental crimes and unauthorized dock expansion restricting navigation. DEP Inspector Janet Morrison arrived expecting major violations based on Brenda's dramatic allegations. Instead, she found Frank's 30-year-old Marina in museum-quality condition. "The complaint mentions unauthorized expansion," Morrison said, comparing measurements to the original 1987 environmental study. "But your footprint hasn't changed since initial construction." The metallic snap of her measuring tape echoed across the water as she verified every dimension. Frank had built his Marina so perfectly that the DEP actually used it as a reference standard for other waterfront projects. "Filing false environmental reports is a serious offense," Morrison warned while packing her equipment. $10,000 fines plus potential criminal charges. Someone provided completely inaccurate information. Criminal charges. Brenda had just committed felony false reporting with her signature on official documents. But Roy wasn't finished escalating. He triggered an emergency property tax reassessment, claiming my Marina generated commercial rental income. Overnight, my taxes jumped from $12,000 to $42,000 annually. The timing was surgical, scheduled for the same week as an emergency HOA meeting to modernize waterfront access bylaws. Coordinated assault. Financial pressure through inflated taxes. Regulatory capture through rigged rule changes. Then, the midnight harassment began. Anonymous calls featuring heavy breathing followed by disguised threats. Sell the Marina or face consequences. The background noise sounded suspiciously like Flanagan's Pub, where Roy held court every Tuesday night with his city council cronies. My security system recorded everything, automatically uploading to cloud storage these tech-challenged boomers would never think to target. Eleanor Fairbanks became my secret weapon. This 78-year-old librarian had documented every HOA decision since 1997 with obsessive precision. Her basement looked like a government archive, complete with color-coded filing systems that would make the FBI jealous. The Kesslers destroyed the Henderson family in 2019 using identical tactics, Eleanor explained over coffee in her immaculate kitchen. China cups clinked as she pulled out manila folders thick with evidence. Manufactured code violations, coordinated political pressure, forced sale at half market value. The Hendersons fled to Florida just to escape the harassment. She documented everything: fake inspections, trumped-up violations, mysterious tax reassessments that bankrupted previous victims. The Kesslers had perfected systematic property theft disguised as municipal governance. 3 waterfront families so far, Eleanor continued, her voice shaking with controlled rage. Each time, Roy's construction buddies swooped in to buy distressed properties for pennies, then flipped them for massive profits. It's organized crime with government letterhead. The scope was staggering. This wasn't personal vendetta. It was systematic theft using municipal authority as the weapon. Brenda and Roy had turned city government into their private real estate acquisition machine, targeting veterans and elderly property owners who seemed vulnerable. But they'd made one crucial mistake. During my Coast Guard years, I'd helped federal prosecutors break up similar corruption rings involving harbor authorities and municipal dock permits. I recognized every element of their operation because I'd seen it prosecuted in federal court. The pattern was textbook municipal corruption: create artificial emergencies, manufacture fake violations, coordinate government pressure, then profit from distressed property sales. What made it federal was the systematic nature and the targeting of protected classes, veterans and elderly citizens. My phone was already buzzing with messages from former Coast Guard contacts who'd moved to federal law enforcement. Turns out targeting veterans' property through fraudulent government action triggers very specific federal statutes that carry serious prison time. The amateurs were about to discover that some games have consequences they never imagined. The taste of victory was already replacing the bitterness of anger in my mouth. The envelope arrived on a gray Thursday morning, smelling like old paper and long-buried secrets. Eleanor's hands trembled as she spread yellow documents across my kitchen table while rain drummed against the windows like impatient fingers. "I found these in my basement last night," she whispered, pointing to faded typewriter text that would change everything. The original 1985 HOA incorporation documents everyone thought were destroyed in the municipal building fire. There it was, typed on an ancient IBM Selectric in Eleanor's own careful formatting. Lot 47B Marina facilities shall remain private property in perpetuity, exempt from all community association jurisdiction, covenants, and assessments. Uncle Frank had negotiated bulletproof legal protection 38 years ago, and the only witness was sitting across from me sipping coffee with the satisfaction of a woman who never throws anything away. But Eleanor's document discovery was just the beginning. Her real detective work had uncovered something that explained everything about the Kesslers' desperate escalation. "I've been researching their finances through public records," Eleanor said, producing a folder thick enough to use as body armor. "Roy and Brenda aren't just corrupt, they're financially drowning." The documents told a story of suburban success built on quicksand. The Kesslers owed $127,000 to various creditors, including a brutal second mortgage at 18% interest. Roy faced an active ethics investigation for undisclosed business conflicts involving city construction contracts. Brenda's real estate license was under review by the state board for false advertising, specifically for marketing my marina as community property to inflate neighboring home values. She's made over $200,000 in commissions selling marina access homes in the past 18 months, Eleanor continued, her librarian precision serving justice beautifully. 3 houses sold specifically because buyers thought they'd have boat slip privileges. Without your marina, her entire business model collapses. The pieces fell together like dominoes. Brenda wasn't stealing my dock for wine parties. She was using it as the foundation of a massive real estate fraud scheme. Every house she sold with community marina access generated illegal commissions based on amenities she didn't own and couldn't legally provide. During my Coast Guard years investigating maritime fraud, I'd learned that real estate misrepresentation involving waterfront property carried serious federal penalties. But here's what made this explosive. Several defrauded buyers were veterans using VA loans, which meant federal mortgage fraud statutes applied with mandatory prison sentences. Their financial desperation explained the escalating harassment, manufactured violations, and coordinated political pressure. They weren't just trying to steal my property. They were trying to legitimize years of fraudulent real estate transactions before the whole house of cards collapsed. Then Eleanor delivered the knockout punch that made my coffee cup rattle against the saucer. "I found this in my files from 1987, she said, sliding across a handwritten letter in Brenda's distinctive script. The letter was addressed to the HOA board in Brenda's own penmanship. The Frank Hugo Marina exemption is properly recorded and legally binding. Marina facilities on Lot 47B remain private property outside association jurisdiction per incorporation agreement." 36 years ago, Brenda had acknowledged in her own handwriting that she knew the marina was private property. Every claim about community ownership, every violation she'd manufactured, every lie she'd told to government agencies, all deliberate fraud committed with full knowledge of the legal truth. The metallic taste of victory replaced the bitterness of anger in my mouth. I now held ironclad proof of not just my property rights, but their systematic criminal conspiracy involving fraud, corruption, and false government reporting targeting multiple veteran families. Eleanor smiled over her coffee cup, looking like a librarian who just solved a decades-old mystery. "I believe the expression is gotcha," she said quietly. Federal prosecutors were going to love this case. With Eleanor's smoking gun evidence covering my dining table like battle plans, it was time to assemble the perfect legal ambush. The musty smell of her basement archives mixed with fresh coffee as we transformed into an unlikely war counsel, a retired Coast Guard engineer, and a 78-year-old librarian plotting the downfall of municipal corruption. "We need allies," Eleanor said, adjusting reading glasses with the determination of someone who'd cataloged injustice for decades. "The Hendersons were destroyed by identical tactics, but they'll fight if it means protecting future victims." My call to Jim Henderson in Tampa cracked his voice with suppressed rage. "Those bastards stole our dream home," he said. 30 years saving for waterfront retirement wiped out by manufactured violations and legal fees fighting fake inspections. "If you can nail them, we'll fly up and testify." Eleanor's preserved Henderson file revealed the exact playbook: emergency inspections by unqualified cronies, coordinated political pressure through Roy's city council connections, mysterious tax reassessments that forced distressed sales to connected buyers, classic municipal extortion disguised as code enforcement. Next came the painful conversations with Brenda's fraud victims, 3 military families who'd paid premium prices for guaranteed Marina access that never existed. Sarah Martinez, a Navy veteran with twin toddlers, nearly broke down describing how they'd stretched every dollar for waterfront living. $20,000 extra because she promised boat privileges in writing, Sarah explained. "My husband deployed twice to Afghanistan to afford our dream home." These weren't just financial crimes, they were systematic attacks on military families who'd served their country, then trusted a corrupt real estate agent with their futures. My Hartford attorney, Rebecca Walsh, started building federal charges the moment I delivered evidence boxes to her office. During my Coast Guard service investigating maritime fraud, I'd learned that federal prosecutors dream about cases with clear patterns, sympathetic victims, and criminals stupid enough to document everything. This case delivered all 3 with gift wrapping. Municipal corruption targeting veterans through fraudulent inspections triggers multiple federal statutes, Rebecca explained, spreading legal codes across her conference table. Real estate fraud involving VA loans means federal mortgage fraud with mandatory prison time. The systematic targeting of military families could qualify as civil rights violations under federal housing law. She'd already contacted FBI agents specializing in municipal corruption who were fascinated by our Connecticut crime syndicate. Apparently, federal prosecutors had been tracking coastal corruption patterns involving waterfront theft, targeting elderly and veteran homeowners. Our case was the missing puzzle piece. Forensic accountant David Kim traced money flows through Roy and Brenda's financial disaster with surgical precision. His digital archaeology revealed systematic fraud that would impress organized crime families. Municipal extortion racket, he concluded, highlighting spreadsheets showing the cycle. Manufacture violations, forced distress sales, profit through connected flippers, repeat until federal agents notice. His analysis exposed Roy's construction company purchasing 4 waterfront properties following identical violation and seizure patterns. Profits from these stolen properties funded their lifestyle while legitimate businesses failed catastrophically, explaining their desperate escalation. Eleanor mobilized our community response with librarian efficiency that put military logistics to shame. Her network of intimidated neighbors finally found courage to speak truth to corrupt power. Mrs. Patterson photographed Roy's inspectors staging violations at the Henderson house, Eleanor reported with quiet satisfaction. Mr. Kowalski recorded Brenda threatening his elderly mother with code harassment. Evidence multiplied exponentially. Security footage of vandalism by Brenda's wine brigade. Audio recordings of midnight threats traced to Roy's political bar buddies. Documentation spanning multiple victims across several years showing identical patterns of manufactured emergencies and coordinated intimidation. Our secret weapon was the public town hall meeting Eleanor had scheduled for Thursday night. She'd convinced the municipal clerk to require all HOA business in open session with mandatory media access and official recording. The Kesslers had no idea they were walking into a carefully orchestrated federal sting operation. But the real genius was Eleanor's research into Connecticut municipal law revealing that filing false government reports while holding public office constitutes automatic felony corruption regardless of federal charges. Roy's inspector buddy Dave had committed perjury on official documents, which meant criminal conspiracy charges for everyone involved. Public officials who knowingly file false reports face automatic removal from office plus criminal prosecution, Eleanor explained with the quiet joy of someone who'd spent decades watching bullies escape consequences. Roy loses his city council seat the moment charges are filed, regardless of trial outcomes. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Federal agents would attend the town hall as observers, while Brenda and Roy unknowingly confessed to systematic fraud on recorded television. Process servers would deliver indictments the moment they finished incriminating themselves. Municipal officials who file false reports face immediate removal and criminal charges. Corruption has consequences even before trial. Thursday night couldn't come fast enough. The taste of approaching justice was sweeter than Eleanor's homemade coffee. Brenda's desperation reached new depths the week before our town hall confrontation. Her opening gambit targeted what she thought was my vulnerability, spreading rumors that I was a dangerous PTSD veteran who'd been dishonorably discharged for violent incidents. The whispers slithered through grocery checkout lines and coffee shop conversations like toxic fog designed to destroy my credibility. The sheer cruelty took my breath away. This woman was attacking 30 years of honorable military service because I wouldn't let her steal my dock. But targeting a veteran's service record is like poking a sleeping bear with federal law enforcement connections. Military records don't lie, and mine told a very different story than Brenda's character assassination. Honorable discharge with commendations, Coast Guard Achievement Medal for maritime rescue operations, 0 disciplinary actions, clean psychological evaluations throughout my career. I scheduled a voluntary psychiatric assessment with Dr. Patricia Reynolds, who'd evaluated thousands of returning Coast Guard personnel. Your psychological profile shows exceptional stress management and conflict resolution capabilities, Dr. Reynolds reported after comprehensive testing. The scratch of her pen on evaluation forms sounded like vindication. 0 evidence of PTSD, anger disorders, or any condition affecting judgment or stability. Her written report made Brenda's smear campaign look like the desperate lies of someone facing federal prosecution. Roy escalated through political channels, convincing Mayor Davidson to fast-track eminent domain proceedings, claiming my marina was essential emergency infrastructure. The absurdity was staggering. Millfield Cove already had 3 public boat launches and a Coast Guard auxiliary station. But Roy needed fake emergency justification for government theft. During my Coast Guard service, I'd learned that eminent domain requires legitimate public purpose, not personal profit for corrupt officials. The legal standard is strict. Government seizure must serve genuine public necessity, not manufactured emergencies designed to benefit connected insiders. My attorney filed an immediate injunction while federal prosecutors noted Roy's abuse of municipal powers for personal gain. Then came the bribery attempt disguised as legitimate business. Atlantic Coastal Development materialized offering $500,000 for my marina with a critical clause: perpetual community access rights to resolve neighborhood concerns. They wanted to buy my property with borrowed money, then immediately grant Brenda permanent access while I absorbed financial losses. My attorney's investigation revealed Atlantic Coastal was incorporated 3 days earlier with Roy listed as consulting advisor. Classic money laundering disguised as real estate transaction, using shell companies to legitimize theft through fake purchases. The community intimidation campaign reached psychotic levels. Anonymous flyers appeared claiming I hated children and was secretly planning development that would destroy neighborhood character. Fake social media accounts spread conspiracy theories about government military plots against local families. The digital forensics were embarrassingly obvious. IP addresses traced directly to Roy's City Hall office and Brenda's real estate company computers. Security footage captured Brenda herself skulking around at 3 a.m. distributing dangerous veteran alert flyers like a common criminal. The infrared cameras showed her wearing sunglasses and a hoodie, placing defamatory notices on car windshields with the stealth of someone committing burglary. But their most desperate move revealed federal-level stupidity. Roy used his official position to contact military databases seeking dirt on my service record, claiming municipal background verification needs. What he didn't know was that my Coast Guard contacts monitor suspicious inquiries into veteran records, especially when small-town politicians start fishing for blackmail material. FBI agent Jennifer Torres called me Tuesday morning with news that made my coffee taste like victory. "We've been tracking harassment of veteran witnesses in corruption cases," she explained. "Municipal officials using government access to intimidate veterans crosses into federal territory with serious prison consequences." The coordination between Roy, Brenda, fake Inspector Dave Kruger, and 6 other city officials had created a criminal enterprise using government authority to steal property while intimidating victims. Phone records subpoenaed by federal prosecutors revealed systematic witness tampering that elevated municipal corruption into federal racketeering charges. Eleanor's community organizing had grown into a neighborhood revolt. Long intimidated residents finally found courage to speak publicly about years of harassment by the Kessler crime family. Mrs. Patterson provided photographs of staged violations at the Henderson house. Mr. Kowalski offered audio recordings of Brenda threatening his elderly mother with code enforcement if she didn't support their Marina takeover. Roy's last-ditch effort to sabotage Thursday's town hall by changing venues was blocked by Eleanor's mastery of Connecticut public meeting laws. She'd arranged 3 news crews plus live streaming to ensure nothing could be suppressed or edited. The federal noose was tightening. Witness intimidation charges were being prepared. The evidence was overwhelming. Thursday night would be their public confession and professional execution simultaneously. They just didn't know it yet. The taste of approaching justice was sweeter than Eleanor's homemade coffee. Brenda's final performance was pure desperation disguised as Academy Award-worthy theatrics. Wednesday morning, she staged an accident at my Marina that would have impressed Hollywood stunt coordinators. The smell of salt air mixed with her cheap perfume as I watched from my deck while she carefully positioned herself near a perfectly normal dock cleat. Her choreographed fall was magnificent. Deliberate heel catch, dramatic tumble, writhing on weathered planks like she'd been struck by lightning. The Oscar-worthy performance included theatrical groaning, clutching her ankle with both hands, and crocodile tears streaming down her Botox cheeks as she speed-dialed 911. "Severe injury from unsafe marina conditions," she wailed into the phone. "I need an ambulance immediately." But Brenda had forgotten one tiny detail. My security system captured every second of her performance in crystal-clear 4K resolution. The footage showed her scanning for witnesses, testing her footing, then deliberately snagging her designer heel before launching into injury theater. Paramedic Sandra Lopez arrived with professional skepticism earned from 20 years of insurance scam calls. The metallic click of her medical kit opening punctuated her examination of Brenda's supposedly devastated ankle. "No swelling, no discoloration, full range of motion," Lopez noted with barely concealed eye rolling. "Patient claims excruciating pain but exhibits normal mobility and refuses hospital transport." Translation: faker than a unicorn sighting. Within hours, Brenda filed a $50,000 personal injury lawsuit claiming my dangerous marina conditions caused permanent disability requiring extensive medical treatment. The insurance investigator who arrived Thursday morning watched my security footage and started chuckling like he'd won the lottery. 20 years investigating insurance fraud, and this is the most obvious fake I've ever seen, Mike Hugo explained while replaying Brenda's performance. "She's literally looking at your camera when she stages the fall. We're referring this to the DA for felony prosecution immediately." During my Coast Guard service, I'd learned that insurance fraud involving staged accidents carries mandatory felony charges in Connecticut regardless of the dollar amount. Brenda had just elevated her crimes from municipal corruption to federal fraud prosecution. Roy's nuclear response came through an emergency city council session scheduled for Wednesday evening with 12 hours notice, a deliberate violation of public meeting laws designed to exclude opposition voices. The resolution would declare my marina a public safety hazard requiring immediate municipal seizure. But Eleanor's community network had been monitoring city communications for weeks. Her phone tree activated like a military operation, flooding the meeting with residents demanding their legal right to participate in municipal decisions affecting their neighborhood. Roy's purple-faced rage when dozens of citizens crashed his secret meeting was beautiful to witness. The illegal resolution collapsed under legal challenges and media scrutiny, exposing him as the corrupt official everyone suspected but couldn't prove. Brenda's grand finale arrived Thursday afternoon, a press conference claiming she was the victim of veteran violence and government conspiracy. She limped to the microphone with a walking cane that materialized from nowhere, surrounded by supporters waving professionally printed "Justice for Brenda" signs. "I've been intimidated, harassed, and physically injured by a dangerous veteran who refuses community cooperation," she declared with practiced conviction. City Council's refusal to protect innocent citizens proves how deep this conspiracy reaches. The performance was flawless until Channel 8 reporter Jessica Martinez started asking uncomfortable questions about staged accidents, fraudulent insurance claims, and systematic harassment of veteran families. Brenda's supporters evaporated like morning fog as the interrogation intensified, leaving her alone facing reporters who smelled corruption. But forensic accountant David Kim uncovered the smoking gun that transformed municipal corruption into federal racketeering. Brenda had attempted to bribe insurance investigator Mike Hugo with a consultation fee to overlook obvious fraud evidence. "She offered me 10 grand cash to understand community dynamics," Hugo reported to FBI agents while playing his recorded conversation. Said the security footage was misleading and needed proper context. That's textbook attempted bribery of federal insurance investigators. The bribery attempt triggered automatic federal jurisdiction. Insurance fraud investigations fall under federal oversight when they involve attempts to corrupt investigators or systematic patterns targeting protected classes like veterans. FBI agent Jennifer Torres confirmed what I'd suspected. The Kesslers weren't just small-town criminals. They were running a sophisticated municipal corruption enterprise that had destroyed multiple families over several years. Federal prosecutors were building RICO charges that would dismantle their entire network. Systematic targeting of veterans through fraudulent government action, combined with insurance fraud and attempted bribery of federal investigators, meets our criteria for federal racketeering prosecution, Agent Torres explained. They've graduated from municipal corruption to federal crimes carrying decades in prison. Eleanor's quiet satisfaction was evident as she prepared final documents for Thursday night's town hall. 36 years watching these bullies destroy families, she murmured while organizing evidence folders. Tomorrow night, justice finally gets served. The federal trap was set. The evidence was overwhelming. The criminals had confessed their crimes in writing and on camera. Thursday's town hall would be their public execution disguised as community meeting. Thursday night felt like the Super Bowl of small-town justice. Millfield Community Center overflowed with 3 years' worth of suppressed rage as neighbors packed every folding chair that groaned under the weight of anticipation. The smell of burnt coffee mixed with old grudges, while FBI agent Jennifer Torres positioned herself in the back row, looking like a librarian but taking prosecutor-level notes. 3 news crews aimed cameras at the defendant's table where Brenda sat in her designer armor, crisp blazer, professional makeup, even the ridiculous walking cane from her insurance fraud theater. She worked the crowd with campaign trail smiles, completely oblivious that process servers Tom Rodriguez and Maria Santos were flanking the exits with federal indictments. Roy strutted through the crowd like a conquering hero instead of a corrupt politician about to face federal racketeering charges. His city councilman pin caught the fluorescent lights as he glad-handed supporters who had no clue they were watching his political funeral. Eleanor commanded the front table with folders arranged like artillery shells, each containing evidence that would obliterate years of municipal corruption. Her calm demeanor reminded me of Coast Guard operations, quiet professionals doing devastating work. I opened with military precision. Tonight, you'll see complete documentation of a criminal enterprise operating under municipal authority to steal waterfront property from veteran families. The overhead projector displayed Uncle Frank's 1987 Marina permits while I explained Brenda's 36-year lie. Murmurs rippled through the audience as they realized the scope of deception. Then came the mic drop moment that changed everything. Here's Mrs. Kessler's own handwriting from 1987, I announced, projecting her letter acknowledging my Marina's private status. The distinctive script filled the screen like a smoking gun. She confirmed in writing that Marina facilities remain private property outside HOA jurisdiction. Every claim about community ownership has been deliberate fraud. Brenda's confident mask cracked like broken glass. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for water, while 300 neighbors watched her credibility evaporate in real time. But fraud was just the beginning, I continued, displaying forensic accounting that made the audience gasp audibly. Mrs. Kessler generated over $200,000 in illegal commissions by selling Marina access she never owned to military families who trusted her with their dreams. Screenshots of her fraudulent marketing materials appeared on screen, showing promises of boat privileges to veterans who'd scraped together down payments for waterfront homes. Sarah Martinez, the Navy veteran with twin toddlers, stood up from the audience with tears streaming down her face. "She stole our children's college fund," Sarah called out, her voice cracking with emotion. "$20,000 extra because she guaranteed Marina access in writing. My husband deployed twice to Afghanistan to afford our dream home based on her lies." The crowd's angry murmur grew to a roar as neighbors realized the human cost of Brenda's greed. Roy's corruption came next, manufactured violations through his inspector buddy, shell company bribery attempts, coordination with multiple city officials to steal property through fake emergencies. Phone records displayed on screen proved systematic criminal conspiracy spanning multiple victims. "Yesterday," I announced with the satisfaction of someone who'd been building this case for 3 years, Mrs. Kessler attempted to bribe federal insurance investigator Mike Hugo with $10,000 to ignore evidence of staged accident fraud. The security footage of Brenda's theatrical Marina fall played in slow motion on the big screen. The audience watched in stunned silence as their HOA chair deliberately caught her heel, then writhed on the dock like she'd been shot. Someone in the back started laughing. Then everyone joined until the room echoed with cathartic laughter at Brenda's expense. Federal prosecutors are now filing RICO charges for operating a criminal enterprise through municipal corruption, I announced as FBI agent Torres stood up, her badge glinting under the lights like a beacon of justice. The color drained from both defendants' faces as the implications hit them like a freight train. Roy looked like he was having a stroke while Brenda's theatrical sobbing began for real this time. Eleanor delivered the final blow with surgical precision. 3 waterfront families have provided identical harassment documentation. The Henderson family is flying from Florida to testify. Federal charges include conspiracy, fraud, racketeering, and systematic targeting of protected veteran families. Process servers approached the defendant's table with papers that would change their lives forever. Brenda Kessler and Roy Kessler, you're being served with federal indictments. The room exploded in thunderous applause as handcuffs clicked around the wrists of 2 people who'd terrorized their community for years. Cameras flashed while Brenda's mascara streaked down her cheeks, and Roy's political career died with the metallic snap of federal restraints. I stepped back to the microphone for the perfect closing line. Ladies and gentlemen, the Marina is still private property. But justice belongs to everyone. The standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. 6 months later, federal justice arrived with surgical precision. Brenda pled guilty to fraud, conspiracy, and attempted bribery, earning 18 months in federal prison plus $450,000 in restitution to her victims. The thought of her making license plates instead of fraudulent real estate deals brought deep satisfaction to every family she'd destroyed. Roy's fall was even more spectacular. Federal racketeering charges, abuse of office, and conspiracy convictions netted him 36 months behind bars. His resignation letter was 1 sentence: I hereby resign, effective immediately. The construction company shell game collapsed when forensic accountants traced stolen property profits through his network of corrupt cronies. The civil settlement exceeded $750,000, creating the largest corruption recovery in Connecticut municipal history. Sarah Martinez and her veteran family received full restitution plus emotional distress damages, allowing them to finally enjoy the waterfront dream they'd paid for, honestly. The Henderson family got justice for their destroyed retirement, along with compensation that funded their actual Florida paradise. My marina remained exactly what Uncle Frank intended: private property, protected by documentation that would prevent future theft attempts. The steel gate still locks out unauthorized users, but now it symbolizes victory over corruption rather than defense against criminals. Eleanor Fairbanks transformed from quiet librarian to regional anti-corruption hero, whose basement archive exposed systematic municipal crime spanning decades. Using settlement funds, she established the Millfield Property Rights Defense Fund, providing legal assistance to homeowners facing HOA abuse or government harassment. Her meticulous documentation methods are now taught in law schools as the gold standard for fighting institutional corruption. The community healing exceeded all expectations. New HOA leadership implemented transparency reforms, including open financial records, mandatory public participation, and term limits that eliminated career politician mentality. Property values soared once honest governance replaced manufactured chaos. But my proudest achievement is the Marina Community Foundation, established with settlement money. Every month, my private dock opens for veterans' therapeutic fishing programs where former Coast Guard, Navy, and Marine personnel find healing on peaceful water. The sound of fishing lines cutting through morning mist replaced toxic echoes of harassment and intimidation. The annual Freedom on the Water celebration draws hundreds of visitors who witness how communities can defeat corruption through documentation, persistence, and federal law enforcement. Veterans organizations share our story nationwide as proof that fighting corrupt authority isn't just possible, it's patriotic duty. Eleanor's monthly property rights education seminars teach homeowners to recognize corruption patterns and document harassment before it escalates. Her classroom has become pilgrimage destination for victims who need practical guidance for fighting municipal crime. 3 essential lessons protect every homeowner from similar theft schemes. Always verify HOA claims against original incorporation documents. Later rule changes can't override founding agreements without proper legal procedures. Document every interaction with hostile officials because courts require evidence, not emotional appeals. Research municipal officials' financial interests in disputed matters because corruption always follows money trails that public records reveal. The legal precedent our case established protects property owners nationwide from municipal theft, targeting veterans and elderly citizens. Federal prosecutors now cite Millfield Doctrine when investigating systematic harassment through fraudulent government action, creating deterrent effects throughout coastal regions. Every sunrise over my peaceful marina carries the salt-tinged scent of victory and the quiet satisfaction of justice served. Uncle Frank's Boston whaler floats restored in Slip 3, American flags snapping in morning breeze above docks that represent individual rights triumphing over petty tyranny. The metallic clink of rigging and harbor wind sounds like freedom bells celebrating honest governance restored. The Marina Foundation Scholarship Program has sent 12 children of veteran families to college, funded by money recovered from criminals who thought documentation didn't matter. Eleanor's Defense Fund has helped 43 families fight HOA abuse successfully, proving that organized resistance defeats organized corruption. Local businesses celebrate honest leadership that protects property rights over political connections. The transformation from fear-based compliance to principled resistance inspired similar movements in communities nationwide where citizens refuse to accept corruption as inevitable. My greatest satisfaction comes from knowing that future families will never face the harassment that destroyed the Hendersons or terrorized veteran homeowners who trusted corrupt officials with their American dreams. Uncle Frank would be proud. His marina stands as monument to the principle that private property rights matter, documentation defeats corruption, and ordinary citizens armed with truth can topple criminal enterprises disguised as municipal authority. Your turn now. Share your HOA horror story in the comments. You're not alone in this fight. Subscribe for more David versus Goliath victories where persistence and federal prosecutors prove that justice still wins in America.
That's a wrap for today's episode on HOA Stories. If you enjoyed watching Karma in action, smash that like button, comment your thoughts, and let us know if you've dealt with HOA madness too. Subscribe so you won't miss the next HOA meltdown we post.